Ladies and gentlemen, as Kevin and I were talking backstage, I told him I wanted to take the day off. I wanted to go golfing this morning. I had some plans with some family. But then, of course, I turn on my television and I see that Sean McDermott was fired, was fired. And I think the craziest thing happened, and Kevin and I pointed this out, man, that was the number one candidate on the face of the planet to be fired for the past 6 years, except for this year. For some odd reason, people are acting like Sean McDermott was the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, my God, he's gone. What are we going to do? Why isn't it Brandon Beane? Regardless, whatever side of the aisle that you fall on, we're going to be talking about this ad nauseum on the show right now. Zebot hopefully is going to join us once he ends up getting off of his stream. Kevin, thoughts on the big news, man, because we have a lot to unpack here today.
Dan, it's crazy. Ultimately, you look at the head coaching history and the regime there, someone that has won playoff games in many straight seasons. He's, the winningest coach in sports since 2020. The argument always is that's Josh Allen's stat. But then people like to say quarterback isn't a win, or wins aren't a quarterback stat. Yep. So it gets me confused. So if wins aren't a quarterback stat, then that's not a Josh Allen stat. But we like to use wins as a quarterback stat when we're arguing.
It's our narrative.
Correct. But we don't like to use it in the playoffs. We don't like to use it when he's 500 in the playoffs. We don't like to use it any other time. But when it comes to McDermott, we like to bring up, well, this is all Josh Allen stats. It's all his metrics. It's all Josh Allen. And it's interesting. I really do think that side of it's interesting. I do think that Sean McDermott goes to the Arizona Cardinals or he goes somewhere similar tomorrow. So I think the coaches, and from what I've been told from the players that I know and who I've built relationships with, and I don't mind going on air saying they were caught off guard. So that tells me that although there was some raw emotion after the game, I don't know that it was tied directly to the moves today. I do think that maybe Sean felt that he had some pressure. He threw Jacoby Myers' name multiple times last week and then shut down Jacoby Myers, which is interesting. And obviously we know the Ingram Slay story. We don't know who wanted Slay. Sean seemed more upset about Slay, in my opinion, in press conferences that he didn't show up. Brandon was like, I would have wanted to keep Ingram. We think that it was Brandon on the Ingram thing. We don't really know that one. That could have been Sean saying we need a veteran corner in this situation. We don't know that one just being going, we want to go with Slay. So those are some of the more immediate ones. And then the receiver discussion, the WGR receiver discussion is just one that's never going to end. But either way, we are now gloating on the fact of Brandon Beane needs to go. This is what I want. And we're forgetting the fact that since 13 seconds, we've been wanting Sean McDermott gone. That is what people and fans have wanted. People like myself, maybe like you, Dan, and others have brought up some points of why maybe the grass isn't always greener, especially this year. The candidate pool sucks. There's a lot of head coaching positions open. Obviously, the Bills will be at the front of the list of who you go and coach a divisional round team with Josh Allen. You can pretty much secure anybody you wanted. And in my opinion, I think Terry Pegula maybe and Brandon Beane have maybe had discussions on who this would be. I don't think this was done in a vacuum. It wasn't done where Brandon's like, I'm going to do a 50-person search. I think that they had some targeted names that they think can increase this roster. And I don't think that Brandon was feeling like the players he drafted and was requested to draft have been where they needed to be. And Brandon Beane ultimately won the argument, and Brandon Beane had the data to Terry Pegula to prove that this is my vision. Look at how well I did from 2018 to 2022 or 2021, whatever. Look at how well that we were able to draft. And Sean's requesting these players, Dan, and this is what we're getting out of it.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm at.
So I posed the question on Twitter, and you and I were kind of talking about this right before we went live. I said, I'm not sure if we'll ever truly know, but based off of the moves this morning, was Sean McDermott the puppet master of Brandon Beane, or was Brandon Beane the puppet master of Sean McDermott? I think based off of the decision that we saw this morning, it's more than likely it was the former, that Sean McDermott probably had a hell of a lot more say in particular players that he wanted to bringing back his guys that were familiar with his system. There was a clear disconnect between both of these guys all offseason, like Kevin just ended up pointing out, with like maybe staying put at the trade deadline for Jacoby Myers or not going for a specific guy, wanting to bring on some old vets onto the organization. And remember, Sean McDermott was brought in before Brandon Beane, right? Like that was Sean McDermott's guy that was ultimately ended up brought into the conversation. So did Brandon Beane really have full control of this roster? I think that we need to ask ourselves that question. And so I really do. I think that this organization looked at Beane And they said, all right, dude, we're going to give you another shot. They promoted him, though, Kev. So does that tell you that his leash may be longer than people are expecting?
I thought both of them had that leash, but for sure on Brandon Beane, here's what I got on. I thought Brandon Beane had that leash, and he did. So I was correct. I thought that Sean McDermott also had that leash. I was incorrect. So I think that when you kind of look at this holistically, there was clearly, for the first time this season, some distension. And I think it started maybe even with the draft to where they went all defense. Why are we going to assume that Brandon Beane isn't? I think what part of the WGR discussion that we don't talk about was probably Brandon honestly covering up for or discussing the fact of like, this is who my head coach / coaching staff in general wanted. And I appeased them. And I also didn't think there was any value at receiver in the draft. He is correct. This receiving draft was not good. Burden turned out to be okay. That would have come at the cost of Maxwell Harrison. Obviously, Harrison was really good at times this year, wasn't able to play down the stretch. But other than that possible swap, there wasn't anything else there. You had Dante Thornton getting overdrafted. You had plenty of other players, in my opinion. Arian Smith, a guy that went to the Jets who was inactive, overdrafted. There was plenty of examples of receivers, especially after the top, whether you like Emeka Egbuka. I think he played really well. I think he's a talented player. I think Beane was going through all that in his head at the time. He was like, whoa, I'm coming on to talk about the defense. I'm coming on to talk about the players my coaching staff and I wanted. And you're sitting here still hammering about receiver. Which receiver did you want in this specific draft? If you want to talk about when we took Kincaid, fine. Kincaid produced in the NFL playoffs. He did have an injury-ridden season, but he's in the playoffs, and he's producing over 130-ish yards and multiple touchdowns over the 2 games. So, Dan, I guess the power struggle was real. And at some point, Beane was like, dude, we're both reporting to Terry Pagula, and neither of us have ultimate say. So I don't have the cards to trump you when you ask for TJ Sanders. I'm going to play nice and see the value in what – if you're saying we need TJ Sanders at the end of the game in pass rush to win a game, good for you. But here's the thing. He wanted Bosa. We have TJ Sanders, and they both came up a completely empty nothing burgers in the NFL playoffs. I think that Beane may have had enough evidence to show that, having him hire another GM is going to go the same way, possibly. But let me prove to you, I've drafted well at times. I have one of the best draft value scores in the league. And ultimately, I'm the one that got you Josh Allen. I think that's an ultimate trump card. As much as we can't live off of 2018 anymore, Dan, you can say the reason you're building a stadium is because you had Barstool. You had plenty of other people absolutely hate Josh Allen. It wasn't Joe Burrow. It wasn't the number 1 overall pick, and we just happened to lose out. We had the opportunity to scout multiple players, and in our opinion, we got the best player out of the draft after multiple quarterbacks were selected, and it was my job to be aggressive to get the guy. Brandon Beane's inherently aggressive. I think you see an aggressive Brandon Beane without a more conservative Sean McDermott at the helm.
Super aggressive, man. Free agency, surprisingly enough, folks, a little less than 2 months away. So we're going to see. All right. We are going to get our answer of whether or not that it was McDermott or whether or not that it was Brandon Beane based off of just behavior. Now, right now, guys, I need each and every single one of you to let me know where you are tuning in from right now. Do not be shy. Spam Go Bills in the live chat. How far does Bills Mafia really extend, guys? I need to know. How you feeling this morning? Kev, a lot of people in the chat are saying that the Ty Dunne article tells all of why it was Sean McDermott. Whether or not that we want to buy into that, have you read it? Or are you willing to pull it up and look over this and give us his thoughts on this? Because that seems to be what people are taking as gospel.
Are we talking about the Ty Dunne article from 2 years ago, or are we talking about he just dropped a new one?
No, I guess he ended up dropping something new. Chat, let us know exactly what you're referring to. I'm pulling up his account right now to share my screen to see if there's anything that we can discuss, if there's any interesting tidbits. Links for those interested. Might be a time to roll out the McDermott article.
Yeah, I think it's the same one that So yes, I think it's the one from the past. Yeah, I didn't know if he just dropped the breaking one in the last 10 minutes, but I'm pretty sure people are referring to the one where Isaiah McKenzie's basically the source and was discussing the fails and that one, and then they went on and still make the playoff. The one where after they fired Ken Dorsey, I believe that was the one that the people are referring to.
That was the one. We have Augusta in the building. Your mom's basement. Go Bills. Relax, my friend. Relax. How about all those stats now? T-Dog V6Q. Not sure what you're referring to
what
there.
Stats?
Nerd. Bath, New York. Go Bills. Do we see this affecting our guys like our stars? The Dunne report from 2 years ago. Yeah. We already know what that's all about. Hornell, New York. Just a shock at all over the world. Dan Mitchell for head coach. And they couldn't afford me, my friend. Being promoted to dictator of football, Benito Mussolini, Augusta Pinochet, or Napoleon Bonaparte. Interesting. Joe is leaving too, so who would be our new offensive coordinator? We're going to get there, man. We're going to hop on this McDermott topic here and unpack and try and find answers because this was insane. Should have been Josh Allen. T-Dog is coming in. Look, all right, you're looking at the two guys that...
He's trolling you.
You guys probably all right. Y'all are looking
I think he's trolling you, but I don't know if he's being serious.
He's got to be, man. You know. And so the kids are off of school today. Why not? Of course, I'll allow it. Lincoln, Nebraska. Go Bills. McDermott was the only one who wanted Trey White and Gabe Davis and other players based on trust. He wanted character-based players, not players. So here's the deal, right? I was kind of shocked that was the move because going into this offseason, I figured that the organization was going to find some sort of scapegoat, right? And I never even really gave an opinion on whether or not that I thought that we should move on from Sean because, like you, I didn't think that the organization would. I thought that a head has to roll type energy was going to revert a bit closer to like a Bobby Babich. Like, oh, breaking news, Bobby Babich has been relieved of his duties, and then we rolled it back with Sean and then Brandon Beane. But Terry pulls the trigger, right? He pulls the trigger and he says, all right, man, enough is enough. And so I look at Sean, man, I thought that he was probably a super talented second half adjusting head coach. I think that he got the most out of a lot of very late round draft picks, specifically in the secondary. But damn, dude, I thought that if it was going to be anybody, I thought that like this organization would have bought into like what the media has been saying, and I thought Beane would have gone. Not that I thought that he should have. Like you, I'm a big fan of Beane, but how shocked are you that it was McDermott?
Originally shocked of that. I thought that he had built the trust of the organization, and he was the guy that ultimately came through with this. I thought that he had built this case. He is dying gracefully as a martyr. Like, I honestly thought that it was him that won. I thought he won the battle of like, look what I get out of this team every year. I don't have a receiver one. I consistently have these hurt rosters. And I think that I'm going to talk about the injuries too here later on the show, because I think that injuries play a role in this discussion from roster development standpoint to Beane allowing McDermott to redo the injury that he probably all had a problem with last year. And then he just elevated the guy that was below the strength and conditioning coach last year. And that was awful. Number 2 in the league in injuries lost. We're going to get into that later. And I think that played a final decision in Brandon Beane's case of, I've told him before, we have to figure out these injuries, and he's not figuring out that strength and conditioning staff, whether it's unlucky or not. I don't care what the physical therapists tell me. It's not normal. All the injuries that are coming out from Greg Rousseau coming out and all the others, the entire team was hurt. It's not normal. And Brandon Beane came probably with a list of receipts of issues that he had there. So ultimately, I am shocked that somehow Terry Pagula saw the evidence from Brandon Beane. If it was, I'm not saying he wrote a novel of evidence, but he saw of like, look at what I'm able to do building a roster. I can't do anything when we want these light players playing nickel all the time. And I'm not the one calling nickel defense or allowing touchdowns at the end of games, having the most points allowed in defensive performances. And I've even made the excuse that it's Patrick Mahomes. You're going against someone that's 14-2 in the AFC playoffs. He's not in the field. Terry Pagula and Brandon Beane felt like they were the best team remaining, especially on the AFC side. You give 4-point lead, and ultimately he wasn't able to hold it. And I'm someone that always has said you can't turn the ball over 5 times and then blame Sean McDermott. But Terry Pagula certainly felt the argument was enough from the Brandon Beane side.
Yeah, no, dude, it's definitely a shocker. Here we are. Dan, how about Pittsburgh Steelers last head coach? Smiley face, smiley face. Well, I'm going to tell you what, man. We're going to be transitioning over into potential candidates I think that would be a fit and some candidates that I think we need to stay far away from. Far away from. This is probably going to piss a lot of you guys off because surprisingly enough, a lot of your favorites are on my list of do not hire. Okay, but
same.
but we're going to stick right here. Here's something as well. So I think that this was certainly a pie of different factors that led Terry to finally pull the trigger. In your eyes, did the Steelers walking away from Tomlin and the Ravens walking away from Harbaugh, did that sort of help push this decision to the forefront in Pagula's eyes? If neither of them were gone, does Sean still have a job right now?
That's a really good question, but you saw both the Ravens and the Steelers not get it done again.
Yeah.
Both have won Super Bowls, and they still made the decisions. Obviously, Sean's been better than both of them since he's been a head coach. No doubt about it. However, I do think that gave them the precedent of saying, Terry, like, got to make a change, and you're going to have to pick. But he's not going to do. I've always said that, just like I would have said, the Bills, talking now granular from a roster perspective, the Bills aren't going to just redo their entire 4 players on the offensive line. Just using that as an example, they're not going to let Osiris Torrance walk, Connor McGovern walk, and David Adler. They're not going to do that. So Sean basically was the one person that had to be let go in this scenario. There was no way he was letting both go. I was 100% I didn't know that it was going to come with a raise and promotion. However, it makes sense because this weird structure of both of them reporting to Sean or to Terry Pagula was super weird. Like, that doesn't make sense in any structure. That's like a super convoluted, conflated style of management. And obviously I forgot that that's how it's structured. And then Beane can always say, like, dude, what do you want me to tell you? Like, Sean wants these players and I'm not over him. And Sean can say, like, what do you want me to do? Like, Brandon's not doing what I want or whatever. And Terry's like, dude, I don't know what's going on here. Like, we need to appoint somebody. And Brandon Beane won the discussion. And who is going to go work? He was hired by the last head coach, Brandon Beane, by Sean McDermott, essentially. Who is going to be the GM that you now hire? You're just going to elevate. Here's what was going to happen. If you fire just Brandon Beane, and I want everybody to think about this, who's going to be the GM that is in that power structure? So you're going to have to demote Sean McDermott anyways, number one. Or number two, you are going to have to just promote somebody there now. What's the difference if you promote Terrence Gray or Brian Gaine? It's the same thing. So ultimately, you can't go that way. What GM were you going to pull that was going to allow the same structure to exist? And now with McDermott with more power, now being a successful head coach prior to being a rookie head coach, like it wasn't. It's not going to happen. And ultimately, Beane had enough proof of, and I have a great chart that I've used in the past that we can pull up here on the show. And I slacked it to you, Dan. Is there's enough evidence before this year that he's a really good GM, minus the Elam and a couple of other picks. GMs miss 60% of the time. And we only, like, you have to look at drafting in a vacuum. The Bills are picking at the end of every round. And Brandon Beane's probably saying that to Terry Pagula. What do you want me to do when I'm drafting 27, 26, 30, 28 every year? I miss out on that top end talent. So I need to be aggressive. But Sean's telling me that I need 4 new defensive players. So ultimately, that's what's going on here. And there's the draft value chart. And this isn't even including the couple most recent drafts. This was done a few years ago now, of how good that he really drafts. Like, we got to evaluate this in a not in a vacuum, but holistically. That was right before they changed their name to Commanders. So, like, and the Commanders ended up going on the run drafting Jaden Daniels, and they had some talent there, as we can see why. The Eagles obviously won a Super Bowl there. The Steelers are always consistently good. The Bucs have rode some of that success as well. The Rams, there was the year they didn't have a first round pick. So, like, ultimately, he isn't just riding the success of one player. Look at him in the 3rd and 4th rounds. He's one of the best drafters in the NFL.
Yeah. No.
And that's not even including James Cook. That number, that score is affected by players like Cody Ford and Boogie Basham in the round 2, but that's not affecting Osiris Torrance and James Cook's score now. So, yeah, Dan, you have to look at this as a picture, and we can't just be in this mind of, like, what happened at receiver this year. And we can't let the decision of who we keep in charge based on what happened at receiver this year. regardless of a soundbite,
Yeah.
out of context soundbite on WGR.
So one thing as well, like you were talking about this backstage, like people also need to realize that not only Sean McDermott had a say about what the offensive weapons looked like, but it was also Josh Allen. He had a very
100%.
large say of what this offense looks like. And I understand that, look, he's our QB. And right before people start to say, oh, Dan, you're just a Josh Allen hater, I'm not. I love Josh Allen. I think that he is a godsend to this franchise. But if you were to ask me, he does not have any say about anything ever again, about how this roster is constructed to the slightest, ever again. That's why I'm actually feeling optimistic about what the future might look like. Stop allowing QB1 to dictate who he wants on this roster, because while everyone thought that it was Brandon Beane's issue, more than likely a lot of it had to do with Josh Allen and his preferences. That's exactly where it was. And we heard him say pre-draft going into it, yeah, man, I was watching those highlights over on Keon Coleman. He looked great. He even said he watches highlights on these guys. And he's like, oh, hell yeah, I want that guy. Come on, brother. Come on. Listen, but QB1 can't make any other roster decisions whatsoever. We just need Beane to do his job and then provide the weapons and allow this new head coach and to find answers and how to implement them. That's like how it looks.
I mean, that's all that you can look at it from a perspective of like, how does Josh Allen is crying at the podium because of how saddened he was by letting his team down. Like he showed raw emotion, which I respect. But like the thing that we've done for the past couple of years is like, Josh is just saying that. Like he's not that sad, or he didn't have any say in Coleman, or all these other takes that don't make any sense. He's the one sending it. Like, I think that Brandon Beane, and even more so, even Terry Pagula said, look, we need a structure. Like we can't have, and even more so, I don't care what anybody says. Who was Curtis Samuel signed for? Which person? Do you think that Brandon Beane went out and just said, I love Curtis Samuel. He's the guy. The offensive coordinator.
It was for Joe Brady, man. Absolutely.
How can we not think about this from a perspective of how this works? That we blame, this is what we do as Bills fans because we haven't won the Super Bowl. We blame everybody, okay? But then we only focus and blame someone that we wanted to blame it on. Joe Brady is the one that had the best year with Curtis Samuel. The one thing he did in Carolina as an offense coordinator before getting fired was he did scheme open Curtis Samuel. You don't think that he's telling Sean and pounding the table, if I'm the offensive coordinator now, this is my first year as the offensive coordinator, get me this guy. You're crazy if you think that Brandon Beane was like, I'm going to go out and just happen to get the guy that was the offensive coordinator's best weapon. The offensive coordinator had some say in player personnel, at least to Sean McDermott, who then went to the owner and said, hey, if we're going to pay someone $9 million, like I'd like it to be the guy my offensive coordinator wants. And Josh Allen had say. He had say in all these offensive coordinator decisions. Ken Dorsey was a massive flop. Josh was known fighter for Ken Dorsey. Like he was known for some of these weapons. Like Gabe Davis is his best friend, was in his wedding party. And I like Gabe Davis. I'm a Gabe Davis fan. But ultimately, we can't sit here and say for 1 minute that he was the one that wasn't saying, like, I want a receiver like Keon Coleman. I already have Shakir. We just got Samuel signed. We just lost Gabe because he got overpaid. I want a receiver like Keon Coleman. I mean, Brandon Beane admits that he had multiple players on the board in the same range of they're all similar range. Look, and most of them, a lot of them have busted. Seriously, that draft turned out very poor. Even Worthy, even Coleman, even A.D. Mitchell, even Leggett. I mean, none of them are good. Even BTJ and my favorite Lad McConkey fell off a cliff. Like, it was a weird draft. Neighbors got hurt, not his fault. Odunze was up and down. Like, none of it looked great. Like, none of it turned out to be like some star-studded fest. And we all just had a piece of the pie in that. And Josh Allen had some power. Is this a move by Terry Pagula to say, look, we're letting a GM run the show? Like, he is going to have the power of how to draft and how to do this thing. It's not going to be the offensive coordinator anymore. The GM gets power, and he's going to have somebody that understands that upon hiring. So I think that's a really good dichotomy of, like, you can't for 1 second sit here and tell me that Curtis Samuel wasn't somebody down the line on this organization that wanted him.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, a lot of people are very excited about who this new head coach could be. And we're going to dive into that next, but we have a couple of super chats in here. We need to give you guys a lot of love for showing, so much support from the Bills Roundtable. As you know, we're live Mondays and Thursdays, typically at 4 p.m. EST typically, but with the news, we had to hop on here and talk. Dan, how about the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, Dwayne? We appreciate that. We're getting there. Don't worry about that. Cody is coming in. Davis Webb was on the sideline, and Josh is here every play, all in 2020. More than any OC has done. Love Webb at OC for Buffalo. I feel like a lot of people have him very high on the list for an offensive coordinator. I've seen some people say potentially a head coach.
No,
I'm good on that one. However, great transition. And by the way, everybody in here, we want to hear from you. We are going to start off with my favorite segment, and that is ripping the hearts out of people who want a particular candidate, but Kevin and I are going to tell you absolutely not. Okay, so please start spamming in the chat who you would like as a head coach, or who you would not like as a head coach, and then we will give you ours. Kevin, start off. 3 candidates that perhaps a lot of Bills fans are mentioning that you want to stay away from like the plague. Talk to me.
Well, first of all, like the Anthony Weaver stuff, getting second interviews with the Ravens and Steelers is very interesting. Like,
very, very.
Oof. Oh boy. Okay.
Please do.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. But if you look at it, I'm going to start at the top of the list. Brian Daboll. Like, I have no interest in Brian Daboll. Like, we want the guy who couldn't get over the hump in the same playoffs offensively, couldn't run the ball. He was spamming 4 wide like he was a child playing Madden. Like, and Ken Dorsey was kind of a disciple of that. Like, obviously, Daboll ran a better version and then went and got a guy like Jackson Dart and still got fired. Like, ultimately, what are we doing? Like, I know we want to discipline Josh. I mean, that's the number one thing that I'm hearing right now is like, discipline Josh Allen, like discipline him, like yell
He's
at him.
He's a grown man. He's 30.
We want Daboll we want to hire Daboll as the head, failed from the Giants because we want to discipline Josh Allen. I got nothing for you, but he's at the top of my 3-man list of coaches that I have zero interest in. That is bizarre. This bizarre rationale. He's a failed head coach. You don't hire a failed head coach who's done nothing, in my opinion. He couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure out the quarterback position. Josh Allen made Brian Daboll, and Brian Daboll did yell at him and did kind of keep him in check at times. But if we listen to Josh Allen, Brian Daboll will be on the top 3 or 4 finalists for sure. No doubt about it. But I do have a better take than that. Is him or Webb the offensive coordinator choice? That I could get behind. That I can get behind.
Yes.
Let's be clear here.
Second on your list, stay far away from.
Second on my list is, well, my list is interesting because are we talking about realistic options or in general? Because that would change my last 2 guys.
So we're talking about guys we would like to stay away from. Just to give you some inspiration, I have actually put it on Twitter for my guys.
Your list already. So Dan's list is public.
Yeah. My list is now public on X. Feel free to go on ahead and follow me over there, and Kev for all of our thoughts. Here are my top 3, Kev. Yeah. You know that I'm a big Joe Brady guy. I'm a massive Joe Brady guy. I think that he is a exceptional offensive coordinator, but dating back to ancient times.
Plan, though, Dan, it could have been the natural succession plan of making this as smooth as possible with the team.
Yeah. It could happen, right? But like, why I'm on this list for me, right, is back in old times, right? Like when you take a dictator down, all right, what else do? You take out the whole damn family because you want to be able to take away every single morsel of what that regime was from the beginning. Now, again, I wouldn't be really upset, but in my eyes, I've always lived by this. If you got to burn a bridge, you better damn well burn it to the ground, right? Just complete facelift, see what's going on. Number 2 for me, like you said, Brian Daboll. Nah, I'm good. Especially a guy that has a recent failure on his resume over in New York. Not my style. You may have been able to talk me into a potential offensive coordinator reunion, though. And then number 3 is Mike Tomlin for me. I think that that's probably about as a redundant of a move as you could to bring into somebody that, in my opinion, reminds me so much of what Sean McDermott is. Again, this is just me speaking off of like no experience in the back of the house of the Steelers organization, but probably wouldn't be too happy with him coming in either.
Gotcha. So let's continue the list. So we obviously, we both have Brian Daboll in common. OC, maybe a different discussion. But if Brian Daboll's the OC, that means you hired a DC coach again. So is that even realistic?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, unless you go like Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, or something. I
feel like we're going offensive coordinator. I feel like we are.
So therefore, Brian Daboll's probably out of play. You're not going to hire him as an offensive style coach. You already have Kevin Stefanski is probably mad that he didn't get a chance to interview elsewhere. But how is he to know? But let's continue the path. I'm just not going to get behind Mike McCarthy. Ultimately,
I've heard a couple of people suggest that.
No.
I'll pass on that too. I wish, and that I could edit this tweet because I probably would have put Mike McCarthy on this list.
No way. And include, you can kind of lump some of these guys together, old offensive coordinator failed guys. I'm good on Cliff Kingsbury. Get him. I don't want him anywhere here. Mike McDaniel as a head coach. All of these guys would be completely fine as offensive coordinators. No problem. Including Daboll. I have no interest in Matt Nagy, Brian Daboll, Brian Callahan, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike McDaniel, Mike McCarthy, and obviously Stefanski already has signed. But that list can all be grouped together of what are we doing? That's the what are we doing list of no, thank you. And then Steve Spagnuolo is kind of in that on the defensive side. Please, that's just not something. And Mike Tomlin is a good example you had on your list. So those are two more guys but what's really interesting and one I wanted to talk, and the Davis Webb is just, he's an OC candidate. There's no way.
He's a QB right now. He's not going to be able to skip a whole
but maybe there's something there. I don't know. Maybe there is something there behind the scenes. Joe Brady obviously makes a lot of sense of a natural transition to keep your team together, make a change, make an offensive voice. Whether it's my favorite or not remains to be seen. But I think who is the hottest offensive coordinator decisions right now? Klint Kubiak, Joe Brady. Is there anybody else?
With Klint, with Klint, he's only had 2 years of play calling experience.
Let's talk about that. Why are we convinced that Klint Kubiak, who has been failed multiple offensive coordinator positions, who finished top 8 once this year in a Seattle offense that's good, it's definitely carried by the defense. It's got Kenneth. I really obviously Kenneth Walker. He's not overly utilizing Zach Charbonnet. It's another running style offense, and obviously developed. The biggest claim that he's going to have is developing JSN. I mean, that's going to be his claim to fame. But what makes that much different than Joe Brady? Just that Joe Brady had Josh Allen, and that will never count, I guess. But I think that they're 1 and 2 on most lists. You have the Baltimore Ravens interviewing him. You have the Raiders. I mean, you have the Dolphins. You have multiple teams interviewing these guys. And a seamless transition is Joe Brady. Are we that confident that Klint Kubiak is 3 steps ahead of Joe Brady? I'm not that confident. I'm not overly confident. What happened in New Orleans?
Yeah.
Sorry. What happened in New Orleans? I'm not saying he's not a good offensive coordinator now, and he has developed a lot in 1 year. But, what are we doing here? How are we sure that he's that much different / better than Joe Brady? I think they're both 1 and 2 right now in the list of offensive coordinator coaches. And the last comment here is going to be tough to know. Do they entertain a college guy? Because that's just way above me in terms of who would even be wanting to leave. They get paid so much, and it's a different experience.
Yeah.
I can't even evaluate the millions of options over there from going on the list from day to, just a ton of different kind of guys, and which one has ever worked out? I guess the Harbaughs, I don't know.
Straight from college right into the NFL. It's what name makes. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this one. If Buffalo does stay with a defensive-minded head coach, if they do, and you're probably gonna hate me for this one, Brian Flores. Would you be interested in potentially Brian Flores? Because I get it, and that he had a failed campaign over in Miami, but I think we can agree that what he was able to do with the Minnesota Vikings defense was certainly impressive. Then again, he might have the similar personality to a Sean McDermott type thing, but at least he brings that defensive stuff, and then you end up pairing him with a quality offensive coordinator. Thoughts on Flores?
The solid defensive coordinator. He's really good. From a coaching perspective, it'd be that I just don't know they go the DC route. Like whether it's Flores or any of the defensive, even the young, the guys like Jesse Minter or whoever else you'd consider like a defensive coordinator option. I just no, I don't love it.
Okay,
I like him as a defensive coordinator, but ultimately,
with head coach, you're going to pass.
I mean,
got it.
The overall structure of our roster and what we would have to do, and like the way he plays defense, would definitely be a peak defense. I mean, he'd have to be paired. He would be one that would need to be paired with the top offensive coordinator choice, whoever that happens to be. Like he would need to be paired with whoever the Mike McDaniel.
Have two former Miami Dolphin head coaches. hey,
exactly.
Like both were. I mean, so the both were cursed with
Tua.
Tua,
with Dable, right? With Kingsbury. Like, what do you?
Both were cursed with Tua, right? I mean, maybe. And surprisingly enough, like, I did kind of like the potential of Cliff Kingsbury, just because I think that Kyler Murray, of course, kind
as
of
an OC or a coach, head coach,
as a head coach.
Okay,
I know, and so I know he was on your list of do nots, but I don't know. And so I feel
my problem is, Dan, my do nots is too heavy. Like this team is too good for me to be looking at some of these guys. But what does that leave? Klint Kubiak and Joe Brady? Like that's literally what my list would leave right now.
Yeah. So you're two guys that you would welcome into the door. You'd be excited for Klint and Joe Brady.
And I can't rank them 1 and 2 because I don't think it's fair to say. I don't think we really.
And they both have similar experience, right?
Right.
Except really for Joe has them by a half a year.
Yeah, really similar. When Joe obviously has Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I think Josh Allen is not going to get say in this. He's done getting say in a lot of these huge decisions.
Yeah. Stop allowing him to have say in anything.
I get the one thing he may have some decision in is where they place Joe Brady in this search. Either off the market, like, no, we're done with this guy, or like really in contention. That I think he will get say in, at least entertaining him as a second round interview.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think that's probably where it stops. I don't think he's going to get say on whether he likes Brian Flores or not, for instance.
Yeah. Spawn the Kills is coming with a $20 donation. We appreciate you, my friend. I'd like to see the Bills get Flores or Mike LaFleur as head coach, and please no Dable at OC. We don't run under him. Should we keep Bobby Babich? I think we rebuild the entire coaching staff, even if it means a down year. We have gotten to somebody. As you know, folks, it is mine and Kevin's goal of radicalizing at least 50% of you, all right? And to look deeper into the picture when it comes into the Buffalo Bills. Look at that. Spawn the Kills, man. Thank you so much for tapping on in. So the two for you is just Joe Brady and Kubiak.
And I can't know all the available options in college football land. That's the hard part.
Let's get crazy here for a second. Let's get
Marcus
crazy.
Freeman. Didn't he already say he's not gonna come to the NFL already? But those were for some worse jobs. I don't. This is borderline delusional, but all right.
Say in 3 hours we get news that San Francisco's had enough and Kyle Shanahan's fired.
Yeah, of course he jumps to the top of the list.
Or Matt LaFleur gets fired from Green Bay.
He got extended.
Never mind.
Just yesterday.
I thought so. Just yesterday, much to the protest of Green Bay Packers fans. Shanahan would be a dream, but I'm not sure San Francisco would be that dumb. And so to let him go.
The Bills have a beat on something. The one thing I'm going to trust Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula in this together as a combo, really probably more Brandon Beane at owners meetings and stuff, is knowing what he wanted to do as a head coach from a head coaching hire. There's no way he's not 3 steps ahead of all of us. The streamers, the media, the national media. He's 3 steps ahead of all of us, including probably had a plan in place to say, all right, and the number one thing I ask people, and I ask people all the time, who are you hiring? And this is the issue I'm having right now. Last year you had Ben Johnson, I guess, and Mike Vrabel, I guess, were the 2 names. And I guess McDonald has been a good coach. When you're looking at it on that perspective, my question always was, who are you hiring? Who is the guy? Is Klint Kubiak really the guy? When we've gone over some of the experiences very similar to Joe Brady in a lot of ways, minus developing JSN, it's very similar. So ultimately, was that the name that he presented to Terry Pagula in his interview to save his job and get a promotion? he has something that's 3 steps ahead of all of us. And you don't know if he knows the beat of Marcus Freeman or a Shanahan or whatever, but it's something that I think is simple. It's not as simple as saying they want Cliff Kingsbury. They have something somewhere that they knew down the pipe that could be an upgrade to the roster. So I think he came in with 1 to 2 or 3 coaching decisions.
Zebot, brother.
Yo, what's going on? I just woke up. What's happening?
I was about to say, man. I thought, and that I was going to have myself a nice little day off. All right. But of course, the news that shook the world. With Kevin and I, we were just discussing our thoughts about Sean McDermott being the one that got axed. Much to the protest of the vast majority of the fan base, he is now gone. We've transitioned over into potential head coaching candidates. I'd love to hear your thoughts about Sean McDermott getting the axe. Man, how you feeling? Talk to me.
Yeah, I just spent 3 hours and 20 minutes on a diatribe trying to dissect what we just witnessed here over on my channel, because I got to tell you, have you ever been more shocked and not shocked at the same time? This has been a very perplexing situation that has you trying to understand what the mindset of the organization is. You just come off yet another heartbreaking loss. What else is new? 3 consecutive exits in the postseason by 3 points. Funny enough, I found that this exit amongst maybe all of them was the least damning on Sean McDermott. I thought that this defense really stepped up in both games, including that Denver game. You only allow 1 true touchdown drive in the second half. The other 3 points gifted to the Broncos off of that early turnover by the Buffalo Bills offense to put the Denver Broncos in scoring position right off of the bat. Now, I had said after that game, after the loss, 6 straight years with a postseason victory, no Super Bowl appearance. I said, look, I understand the fatigue. If you want change, it's justifiable. I didn't think using the loss to the Broncos as the catalyst for the firing was fair, because I did not think that fell on the shoulders of McDermott the way people think that it did, or the way that it has in years past. But when you do look at the culmination of a 9-year career where the Bills have literally done everything under the sun that dynasties have done. The Bills have done quite literally everything that dynasties in this sport have done, besides make a Super Bowl, besides win a Super Bowl. I've talked about this before, but even what I just mentioned, 6 straight years with a playoff victory, only 3 other teams have done it. The Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Patriots, all 3 of them have won 3 titles in that span. The Bills, I quite literally yesterday saw a tweet that just had me sick, because I said the Bills are literally the best to never do it. That if there's going to be, if there's a movie title when it's all said and done, and the Josh Allen-led Buffalo Bills don't win one, the title of the movie will be The Best to Never Do It. In the last 6 years, the Bills have scored the most points in the NFL, allowed the fewest points in the NFL, have the best record in the NFL, and have a point differential of 902. No other team over plus 600. That's over on Football Perspectives Twitter. He tweeted that out. And speaking of perspective, it really puts into perspective what these Buffalo Bills have done over the last 6 or so years, and how unbelievable it is that has not culminated in a championship. Where I'm stunned here is not necessarily the change, because once again, after all I just said, to not have won one, I understand wanting change. But for Sean McDermott to be pigeonholed here as what seems to be the scapegoat, while Brandon Beane is not only in the same boat, but promoted, I find to be incredibly head-scratching. After the year that Brandon Beane just put together, where his soundbite on GR was a running joke for months, this wide receiver core was deemed to be one of the worst in the NFL by anybody who watches the sport, justifiably so. It winds up being an issue all throughout the year. You get to the trade deadline, you don't make a move, and then you justify not making a move by saying that you almost made a move, but the Dolphins wanted a future first round instead of this year's first round, and I wasn't willing to do it. You look at the roster construction in itself, and it feels like Josh Allen has elevated what otherwise would be a roster that would be towards the middle of the pack. I like Brandon Beane. I think he's done a great job. I know that there's been pitfalls. The thing of it is, though, is McDermott, of course, had his pitfalls too. I look at these two guys and I say that they've had they have some really great stuff on their resume. They have some big gaffes on their resume. But if I'm looking at the two, I think they're more comparable than not. So why is it that Sean McDermott gets the brunt of the blame? Why does he have to be the one to pack his stuff and leave while the other one in this situation not only suffers the same fate, but ends up getting rewarded? You get promoted and now put in charge of hiring the next head coach. I find that to be head scratching. From the sentiment I'm getting from the public here, they seem to be in the same boat, wondering why was this decision made the way that it was. The other thing I'll add here too, for those who wanted McDermott fired, couldn't wait for him to be fired, been waiting years for this moment. The shoes left behind are far larger than you imagine. I think everybody thinks that the grass is just greener on the other side because it's on the other side. But all those things I just listed off that the Bills have done despite not winning a championship, the incoming head coach would have to do all of that and then some in order to look back on this situation and say that it was a success and not a failure. You're looking at this particular predicament the Bills are in, and the only way that this winds up looking like a good move is if whoever you hire makes a Super Bowl. It's not like other head coaching options where you go in and all they want you to do is make the postseason, compete for the division, in some instances just have a winning record. This situation is unique because whoever is hired will be deemed a failure if they do not move on to a Super Bowl at some point. This is the most pressure-packed head coaching opening in a very long time. Now, is it one of the best head coach openings in a very long time? Absolutely. But whoever comes in has a burden of pressure on their back that is sizable. You come in without much grace. You don't get a grace period of a year or two to figure it out. You got to come in and figure it out ASAP. Because I just said on my stream, if the new head coach were to win 4 consecutive AFC East titles, win a playoff game in 5 straight years, have the second best winning percentage in the next half decade or whatever, not reach a Super Bowl, they would be considered a downgrade from Sean McDermott. The only way that this pays off is if whoever they hire winds up getting to the Super Bowl. And Dan, that's a major, major ass to have.
So I was able to pull it up because while you were going off on that, I was curious. I was just like, all right, based off of everybody that's potentially available, a lot of names people are bringing up would be rookie head coaches, first-time head coaches. There have only ever been 2 rookie coaches in NFL history that have won a Super Bowl. The Baltimore Colts head coach, Don McCafferty, back in Super Bowl 5, and then George Seifert. Only 2 rookie head coaches ever have won a Super Bowl. I can't remember a rookie head coach. With Dan Quinn wouldn't count from last year. And let me know, there could have been a recent example, but I really can't think of like a rookie head coach that has made it even to a championship round his first year. And so am I blanking?
Not to my knowledge. I want to address the chat too, who are in disagreement with me. Look, I want to say, I understand the mindset behind making a change here. I'm not sitting here demanding that Sean McDermott needed to be retained, but I do find it awfully interesting that he was the one who had the entirety of the blame pinned on him. Brandon Beane's promoted, and I'm just painting the picture here of what the expectations are. I'm quite literally just telling you what McDermott did and what will have to be done in the future here in order for this to be deemed a success, because anything shy of that will be considered a failure. And you just mentioned it, Dan. How difficult is it to bring a guy in and immediately go the distance? Mike Vrabel might do it here with New England, but he's coming fresh off of a really solid tenure in Tennessee. This is an incredibly pressure-packed job that the Bills have now opened up.
I'm interested, man. Klint can't be interviewed until February, which is scary because we lose top DC candidates.
And
also offensive line coaches and fire GM in Feb means draft plans exposed. Kevin, thoughts on that?
Can you wait that long in this search? I guess you can, like what the Bills, especially with a veteran roster with playoff bound team. Like, I guess in this case, you can. Like, as a rookie head coach with no roster, no quarterback, you got to start your scouting. Like, obviously, it's not as great of a situation. But I mean, Zach Charbonnet just tore his ACL. He's done. So how does that affect the playoffs? He's a huge part of Klint Kubiak's offense. I'm interested to see what he does now without one of his chess pieces, how this looks against the Rams, who are probably, in my opinion, probably still destined for it. But Ben Johnson was right there. I mean, as a rookie head coach to go to the championship game and wasn't able to do it. I don't think he called a good playoffs. Zebot said it in the wild card round. I think he was over his head a lot in the playoffs. I thought he made some terrible calls and was bailed out by some ridiculous Caleb Williams plays. I mean, they scored 10 points before a 4th down, 360 Josh Allen throw in the back of the end zone where the Rams corner wasn't covered, just forgot about the backup tight end, really. So honestly, we're going to have some growing pains like that. So did the Bills pivot? I'm still a firm believer in this whole situation. The Bills have a plan. Brandon Beane didn't get the promotion of football operations by waltzing in there one guy and be like, yeah, baby. I just, whether it was Lord Balin from Lord of the Rings or any of these guys who just happened to survive, I think ultimately, he had a plan, and the plan obviously was seen by Terry Pagula. And we talked about it. Like, you either have to let them both go or just McDermott. The just Beane never made sense. Yeah. Structurally never made sense. Like, that was never going to happen.
So, Z, right before we went live and right before I went live on my channel this morning, I was kind of trying to figure out, I was like, why was it McDermott and why was it not Brandon Beane? And then I asked myself this question. I said, was Brandon Beane the puppet master of Sean McDermott, or was Sean McDermott the puppet master of Brandon Beane all along? I don't think we'll ever have an answer, but signs suggests that the latter was the fact.
Terry agrees with the latter, whether he's right or not. He's wrong many times.
That Sean probably had a bit more, or virtually the vast majority of the decision-making power when it came into building this roster in the first place. Thoughts on that?
Guess we're about to find out. That's the problem I'm facing right now. How many questions are we left with that we'll probably never have an answer to? A ton. Yeah. I mean, when was this decision made? A month ago or last night? Like, what could have been done in order to save this job for Sean McDermott? If that Brandon Cooks catch is caught and it's deemed a catch like Devontae Adams was, don't get me in on that. I've been in my mentions have been, I can't even explain it to you. But if that's caught, is this happening? Did he have to reach a Super Bowl in order to have saved his job? Did he have to win a Super Bowl in order to save his job? What would have happened? Would we be talking about this time next week if they lost to New England? My guess is probably yes, because I think one of the factors in this firing is that Mike Vrabel took this New England Patriots team likely to the Super Bowl in his first year with Drake May in his second year. I do think that factored in. The question you're asking, though, unfortunately, I don't know if we'll know the answer. I do find it interesting, though, that because clearly, like Kevin said, there has to be some broader plan in place here for you to not only pin any of the blame on Beane, but to then promote him and put him completely in charge of this role. We'll find out. I'll tell you, I said a lot of pressures on this incoming head coach, a lot of pressures on Brandon Beane, because the decision made here is ultimately going to fall on his shoulders. It seems to be coming down to him. This is as important of an offseason as the Bills have had in a very, very long time. Not only do you have to nail the coach, but obviously you got to retool this roster in a way that Brandon Beane hasn't been able to do as of late in order to get this team into a spot where we all think we feel back to a confidence level that we felt a couple of years ago.
And so I just have a gut feeling, man, that this is going to be one of the most aggressive off seasons that we have seen in a long time. I just have a gut
that
feeling.
Had to have been part of the plan that I was referencing to Zebot just mentioned. Like I just don't think he walks in, like I mentioned, as just this deer in the headlights. And it's like, yes, I survived. Like, he probably was, unfortunately, had a plan in place of his candidates, what this looks like, the limitations he's had, this head coach and GM reporting structure, parallel, who gets the final say if he wants TJ Sanders and whatever, like, who gets the final say in that? Is that Brandon? Do they ask Terry? And Terry's like, yeah, Cam Coleman. Like what does that look like in the structure tree of how this works? And ultimately, I think that Brandon had probably enough evidence to say, like, I haven't been able to build the roster the way that needs to be had. Like, we're only bringing retreads. I was told adding TJ Sanders and Joey Bosa would get them over the hump with the pass rush in the playoffs. It didn't happen. There's more there. And then obviously he's not going to lead a GM search, then a head coaching search. I think it just made sense organizationally, and the past, whether he had a bad, like Brandon Beane had a bad 2025. I don't think any of the panel disagrees. Me, who loves Brandon Beane, to Zebot, to Dan, to Bill's Bunker, I don't think any of us agree he had some good 2025. Like, he didn't. It was his worst GM year, coupled with the miss of Keon Coleman, kind of elevates that feeling of how is he as a GM when really we brought up the draft value chart, and we have to look at this holistically. We can't be only involved with the martyr Sean McDermott taking over as like the good guy, when I've been arguing for years why maybe not the grass isn't always greener. That like, and then all of a sudden this year, after the WGR / the last 12 months that from the Coleman draft to today that he's had wasn't great. It was his worst 12 months as a general manager, no doubt about it. But in his drafting ability, he is better than average, third ranked per draft value ranking. Like, that's not a stat. It's not something I've made up, that Terry Pegula made up. He's the third best drafter, and that's not including hits like Osiris Torrance and James Cook being the NFL's leading rusher. So ultimately, he's a better drafter than we talk about on air. From our shows to other shows, he has struggled recently. And how much free agency power did the coaching staff have? Enough to where Brandon Beane was able to prove that to Terry Pegula, that I'm not going to rush out and sign with my last money an injured Joey Bosa. Like, we don't really know how that looked, like who had that say, and only bring back Jordan Phillips, Jordan Poyer, Trey White, even though I like Trey White, and some of them worked out, but some of them didn't. And that leads to Dane Jackson in there. And then someone's reaching for Slay, whether it was Beane or that McDermott. Someone's cutting Ingram. Like, who was what? We probably will never know, but you could go either way with why are we in a position to need Ingram? Ingram's a special teamer only. And why are we only using retreads? Like, why can't I sign actual guys who I think are better and use the money that way? There was definitely this tension toward the end. And then you had McDermott obviously taking shots toward the end there between the Jacoby Myers comments during a playoff week, which it wasn't great at that stage with whoever's decision was what. And then the Jaylen Waddle reports were just kind of the cherry on top of all this whole thing, guys. Like, what's even real there from the assistant Miami general manager, who you think is going to trade his top asset without the full-time job? He just lost his job to the new GM there in the Green Bay GM that moved over for the assistant GM to Miami, and he packed his bags. He thought he had the full power to trade one of their franchise assets, and all they did at the deadline was move a rented Jalen Phillips. Ultimately, like, all of this is really hard to go through the mud, and Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane definitely have a plan forward, or I think they both would have been out the door.
First off, my guy Jake's here. Jake, dude, you know what, man? At least you get to spend a little bit of time in your hometown, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's good to be back. It's good to be here talking, and it's been a roller coaster over the last 48 hours, though.
It has been.
It's been insane. But
it's been crazy, man. Thoughts on everything? Thoughts on McDermott? And right before we transition, because we haven't even heard y'all's top candidates for a replacement. But first, I want to hear your thoughts on the McDermott firing.
Yeah, so this is pretty loaded situation, right? I mean, Sean McDermott, he's been around for 9 years. He helped install that winning culture for the Buffalo Bills, turn things around, help end that drought. So that's something that Bills Mafia forever be thankful for, with Sean McDermott. You know, the clapping hands on the sidelines, 98 wins in the regular season, second most by a Bills head coach. Really impressive resume. But the thing is, I personally feel as if with Josh Allen at the quarterback position, Sean McDermott plateaued. That's how I feel. I feel as if he plateaued. He was unable to get past that AFC Championship game. And at times, he made some decisions in those playoff games that contributed to those losses. So here we are now in 2026, after another divisional round loss to the Denver Broncos this time on the road. And it's confusing to me because Sean McDermott, I have also kind of been like, you know, I feel as if maybe his stay has been overdue. However, with that being said, I do find it confusing that on the same day Brandon Beane gets a promotion, because Sean McDermott, at the end of the day, is working with what is supplied to him by the general manager. The general manager's job on paper is to draft and construct the best possible roster. How much say did Sean McDermott have in that? We don't know. But at the end of the day, having your general manager who put out this roster in 2025 did not address needs at the trade deadline and went into the playoffs with Brandon Cooks Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir at the wide receiver position in this game against the Denver Broncos, that's very questionable to me. And I think if you get rid of the one, you should be doing it to both, not promoting the other.
Interesting. So we're at odds over here on the panel. We're at odds over here on the panel, baby. I love it. That's what the Bills Roundtable is all about, man. Everybody in the chat, guys, 318 of you are currently rocking with us right now. 318. I think that's a show record. That is absolutely sick. Do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up sign, man. Tell a friend. Subscribe and turn on bell notifications. We are live Mondays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. EST, where we break down everything Buffalo Bills related, plus a bunch of pre-recorded videos to give you daily news breakdowns. Do not be shy. Welcome to the family. And please put a 1 in the chat if this is your first episode you have ever seen. All right? Zebot, I'm going back to you, my friend. Right now, a pretty big discussion. Who is going to be the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills? What is your preference? Give me your top 3 candidates.
Yeah, I'm really going to have to look into this. The preference, though, for me, unquestionably, is an offensive-minded coach. You're talking about probably having to replace another OC. So should you do that, you are going to be moving on to what would be the 4th offensive coordinator for Josh Allen. I don't want to hire another head coach with the idea that we're going to have to cycle through a new offensive coordinator every 2 years because Josh Allen puts up 30-plus points a season. This has to be an offensive-minded head coach. Right off the bat, what I do think has the most legs that would make sense right now, whether I want it or not, I got to think about it. But Brian Dable right now makes the most sense because McDermott's out of the building. It felt as though there was a tiff at the end there. So that's no longer a reason to factor in whether or not you'd want to bring him in, right? A lot of success with Josh Allen that got him that New York Giants job. The relationship with Josh Allen, the relationship with Brandon Beane, I think it makes sense. Whether or not I want it or not, I don't know. I personally feel like I want to go towards one of these younger offensive-minded guys, whether that be Klint Kubiak's name comes to mind. I think I'd probably prefer Mike LaFleur over that. I think that there's been more success there on the offensive side of things. But then again, there's just far more personnel on the Rams than there is Seattle to be capable of having that type of success, which you have to factor in too. It's like with Ben Johnson, right? With that loaded Detroit offense, you have to wonder at times, are these guys actual head coaches? It's like with Mike McDaniel. I keep hearing his name be popped out. Would I love him at OC? Where do I sign? I'll sign right now. Head coach? There's absolutely no way. The guy is not a head coach. He's a hell of a leader of men. He's not. And to transition from what McDermott was culture-wise to that would be a significant shakeup that I think would undo a lot of what McDermott and Beane built over the last decade here or so. To put a bow on it, Dan, offensive-minded head coach. I keep hearing Tomlin. I'm big time out on that. Mike McCarthy, I'm out as well. I would rather go younger here than I would older. I just don't want to go for a guy that I think probably has his best years behind him. I'd like to see what we got from a guy that maybe hasn't proved to everybody yet that he could be the next McVay, Shanahan. We just saw it with Liam Cohen. We're watching it with Ben Johnson. Obviously, he was the hot candidate. I don't think he had a great postseason here. But my whole point is that there's guys that haven't had the crack yet that wind up being the guys. And I think offensive-minded at the end of the day is the way you got to go, which then transitions into wondering what this Bills defense will look like when it's all said and done. Because the Bills defense has been top of the line, whether you want to believe it or not. When you're looking at the culmination of all the years John McDermott just put together during his tenure in Buffalo, the Bills defense was towards the top. So what's the Bills defense going to look like now that McDermott's no longer at the helm? Offensive-minded guy, Sean, Dan, that's where I'm at. And I'm wondering when we're going to see it. I got a feeling, like Kevin mentioned, I got a feeling it's going to be before the Super Bowl. But if you have, LaFleur in mind or Kubiak in mind, depending on who makes the Super Bowl there, it's going to get real interesting.
But so Zebot, you have to ask him who are the 3 he doesn't want.
You're right.
Yeah.
Zebot. So me and Kev, we ended up giving the 3 that we did not want.
Sure. You did say Tomlin already.
Yeah, so Tomlin, it's no slight at Tomlin, and I see people in the chat who want him, and I love Mike Tomlin. But the argument's always, well, he's done more than McDermott. Well, he won a Super Bowl 16 years ago. I think Mike Tomlin's best years are behind him. If you look at the timetable from when McDermott took over to where Tomlin was in Pittsburgh, I know the talent was less, but they were an automatic first-round exit every single year, and they underperformed, I think, every single year based on the standard that Pittsburgh has. So I think, would it be a brutal move? Like, would I be throwing stuff at the wall, punching a hole in the wall? No, but I think it's a lateral move. I don't think you make this move if you're Buffalo, if you're looking to just take a step to the right or the left. I think you're trying to take a drastic leap forward, or else you wouldn't do this. And I don't think Mike Tomlin is that. Joe Brady would be on that list as well. I don't think you can promote from within here. If you surveyed the fan base on a 100-person sample size, how many people are going to say they didn't want Joe Brady to return as offensive coordinator? Could you imagine if they promoted him at head coach? Bill's Twitter the following day or in that moment would be unlike anything you've ever seen before. I thought Joe Brady coached a great game in that Denver game, and I think that he was fine throughout the duration. I don't think it was great, but then again, I don't think the personnel was the best either. I just don't think that he would be my decision. I don't like promoting internally unless you are dead set on that guy being the guy. If you're moving on from McDermott, then why would you then promote from within the staff in which McDermott had already fielded? Do you want to start over or not? So whether you love or Brady or not is irrelevant to me. I think unless you think he's the next offensive savant, which I don't think any of us think that he is, that's why I'm not promoting there. And then lastly, Mike McDaniel. Like I just mentioned, I think if Mike McDaniel were up for taking over the offensive coordinator job and running shop with Josh Allen, sign me up. But from a head coaching perspective, I think he proved well and good in Miami that is not his strong suit. His strong suit is coaching offense, dialing up plays, having a good rapport with his offensive players. It felt very buddy-buddy, and it felt very laxed and just kind of vibey out in Miami, and look what that resulted in. So those would be my three right there that I would not want to sign up for today.
So you know what I'm about to do? And so I'm about to hit up our graphics team, and I'm going to get a cartoon face of all of us. And we're going to have the top three candidates to hire and the top three candidates to stay far away from. I like that, man. I like that. Look, it's just popping into my mental right now. By the way, I was just informed, and maybe I should do a better job of knowing exactly who each and every single offensive and defensive coordinator in the league is. But there's two Kubiak brothers, apparently. Klint Kubiak from the San Francisco 49ers is getting a head coaching interview for the Raiders. I'm going to have to take a look at this. I have no idea about his game. San Francisco looked good with all the injuries. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into some super chats real fast. McDermott built a culture to play bigger than you are. Beane refuses to give up picks for big-time game changers. No move for a wide receiver when we needed one. Allen underthrew Shakir and overthrow to Knox. You bring up a lot of very good points. From my perspective, we don't know how much of that was Brandon Beane. For all we know, it could have been the majority of Sean McDermott pulling the strings on what this roster looked like. It's not crazy to think because Sean McDermott was here before Brandon Beane. I could see that world. And one thing I would like to warn everybody here, okay? I know we love Josh Allen on this show. I know that you think I'm a Josh Allen hater on this show. I am not. But you could have the most genius offensive coordinator on the face of the planet, okay, come into this organization. It's not going to prevent Josh Allen from coughing up the football 4 times and throwing 2 ducks that would have advanced us to the AFC Championship game. Remember that. Remember that. We can lock in here. Beane was a puppet. He wanted the 50 million old defensive end, not a wide receiver. How do you know that wasn't Sean McDermott who wanted him? How do you know that? Jay Ham, he has to have someone locked in on the first and no reason for not making a trade. If not, this will have to be a generational offseason or he is gone. Look at that. Thank you for all of your generosity. My sister's crackpot idea was Flores at head coach, McDaniels at OC, to which I said, yes, bring the 2 guys Miami fired one after the other to us. That would be hysterical if we ultimately ended up sweeping them too. Like we swept them that year with that like overall connection. Jake, I want to hear from you. 3 guys you want the Bills to stay far away from. 3 guys that you would like the Buffalo Bills to bring in.
Okay, so let's steer clear of Joe Brady, first of all, because Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, he's been around for a little bit. He's got that rapport with Josh Allen, you could say, in this offense, but I'm not sold on the idea of promoting someone who has been heavily criticized already just as an offensive coordinator and who hasn't had that head coaching experience. It just doesn't make sense to me. Another guy that I would want to stay away from for the Buffalo Bills, there's quite a few, but Brian Flores, a defensive-minded coach, I think that he's done great things with the Vikings, but stay away from these defensive-minded head coaches. Let's go to people that I'd like to see the Buffalo Bills bring in. I mean, this one, okay, I'm very in the middle on Brian Daboll, because Brian Daboll is someone who obviously has had great success with Josh Allen as an offensive coordinator. And he was here when Josh Allen really transitioned into the superstar quarterback that we know him as. But what happened with the New York Giants? Did he get a fair chance in New Jersey? I mean, the organization is a mess with the Giants, but he has that rapport with Josh Allen. So I am interested to see exactly how that would play out. I think Zebot mentioned Mike LaFleur earlier from the Rams, and brother of Green Bay Packers head coach Matt LaFleur. So I think that those offensive-minded head coaches are ones that the Buffalo Bills should really look into, because it's time for switching things up. The Buffalo Bills just fired Sean McDermott after 9 years. So let's not go back into the same pattern. Let's play to the strengths of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is your best asset. He's the quarterback, the franchise quarterback. Play to his strengths. He's going to be 30 years old entering next season. You have to maximize that window with an offensive-minded head coach. Mike Tomlin is also someone that I'll stay away from, although I am intrigued because, you know, it's Mike Tomlin and he led the mediocre Steelers to the playoffs constantly, and he hasn't really had a reliable quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that there's something to be said about that. Very impressive resume and a well-respected head coach, but I'm going to steer clear of that because I do think there's too many similarities to Sean McDermott. Right now, I'd have to look into it more, but right now, the two that stand out for me as ones that I'd look into are LaFleur and Daboll.
Interesting, folks. Interesting. We have a caller backstage. He has something he'd like to say. Dwayne is in the building. Dwayne, what do you got for us, man?
Feed me more.
Feed you more, brother. Feed you more. What's on your mind? Talk to us.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited. I'm excited for our future. Bunker, man, normally I disagree with you, but I think you're spot on today, man. You know I call you out when I disagree with you. Z-Bot, you know I disagreed with you today, but that is what that is. You have the right to your opinion. You know I still love you, bro. Number one, it has to be an offensive-minded coach, right? As much as I like Mike Tomlin, he's way too conservative of this team, and we've gone through one too many defensive-minded head coaches already. It's going to be tough. To the point Z-Bot made, I think the filling the shoes of the McDermott's going to be big, but I don't think it's going to be as big as you think because, again, to the point, Josh Allen is why we won so many games. We lost that last game because Josh Allen had to freaking play hero one last time. I also agree that McBeane should have been fired, but also to Dan's point, I think McBeane was the puppet. I 1,000% agree with this. Let's just put it this way. We could have gotten the $50 million old defensive end instead of spending $30 million on a number one wide receiver. And maybe if we had that number one wide receiver instead of keeping getting these old defensive ends in here that used to be great, we would still be in these playoffs. That being said, love you all. I'm out of here. Oh, hell yeah, man. Peace.
Dwayne.
Thanks, Dwayne.
We appreciate the call, man. We sincerely appreciate the call. Guys, 333 of you are on here right now. We love to see that. We sincerely love to see that. I need to tell you about Picasso's Pizza, though. Come on, you really think I go a show without telling you about Picasso's Pizza? The number one pizza in Western New York. Now, guys, right now they currently have 4 great locations in the Western New York area. But if you are not located in the Buffalo or surrounding areas, guess what? They're delivering nationwide. They will send pizza to your front doorstep. Just simply go to their website, picassospizza.net. Hit that nationwide button right here and place your order. Shout out to Picasso's for being proud partners to this show. Let's go around the table and give our final thoughts. I thought that this was going to be at least a couple of week break right before I got into off-season content. I'm sure you were all feeling the same, but there is no rest for the weary here, especially in Bills Mafia nowadays, because we need to find a damn new head coach. So the content is going to be firing on all cylinders, I'm sure, from all of our perspectives. Kev, what do you got to say to the audience before we let them go?
Well, it's now a new offseason of content, something we are not used to as content creators. At least, I was podcasting, I guess, back in the Rec Trying days a little bit, but it's something probably none of us are overly used to, a coaching search. And it's time to discuss what that looks like. So we're going to have probably content from all over across the board. Zebot's got his live stuff going on, so I'm sure he's got a different perspective. And that's what's great about the Bills Roundtable, is that all of us are going to bring a unique, varying experience levels, and that's super cool to see. So lots of good content in store for this. We're going to have some on-demand videos, Dan. We've already released our first one late last week, and we're looking forward to maybe some coaching cut-ups, try to bring some film together, see what we can do to say which Kubiak, which retread head coach, which upstart young offensive mind. And it's really interesting because I still think on a lot of lists, Joe Brady's like second. So
I like it.
They want a photo cut. I'm not saying he's my preferred candidate. Let's be clear. I'm just saying it could be a seamless transition for the roster, especially if they don't see a fundamental benefit waiting and either the Kubiaks being big upgrade to the team. So that's more what I think. They're all on par with each other.
Z, what do you got for the people right before we send them off?
What a crazy weekend. What a crazy day. And now we are going to enter into a crazy offseason. Like you said, Dan, just when you thought we were going to try to find a way to pick our pieces of our heart back up, put it together again, and get ready for next season, we will now have to do so when finding a new head coach. Crazy. This is 9 years. This isn't like this was a couple-year stint. This was a long time. The entire Josh Allen era was led by Sean McDermott. No longer today. So what's happened has happened, and now I look forward to seeing what the result of this is. This is going to be an incredibly entertaining and very important offseason. Cannot wait to spend it with you guys over the next couple of months.
Absolutely. Bills Bunker, what do you got?
Hey, man, this season has been one hell of a ride. And, like the way it ended, really tough. I got to say today, specifically, I'm just shocked they actually did this. Because I'm shocked, but it's not surprising. You could expect that someone was going to get canned, but I'm shocked that, in the morning, you see Sean McDermott is fired. It's just a shocking thing to see. It's surprising. It surprises me that they actually did it. That's the thing. But here we are, and now we have a lot to discuss. I'm going to be here more consistently after, this was one crazy season for me. Every single Buffalo Bills game, home and away. But here we are. We got a lot of things to discuss all off season long. New coach, new stadium, new era for the Buffalo Bills. It's time for a reset. Josh Allen, you're going into your 30s. You got to get this thing done. You got to make the right decision at the head coaching. And you got to maximize all of your assets in the offseason, whether that's through trades, spending, or in the draft. We'll be breaking it all down. At the end of the day, it's always go Bills.
It's always go Bills, man. It is always go Bills over here. Guys, we appreciate you. As a reminder, we're live Mondays and Thursdays, a bunch of pre-recorded content on this show. I can already guarantee you half of you are not subscribed to this channel. We need to change that right now. Subscribe and turn on bell notifications. Go Bills. We will make sure you're updated on everything that happens within this organization. See you soon. Love you all.